What does planning really mean in an Indian city context?
Planning in an Indian city context. I think the first thing is that we should understand what planning is. And so, planning is a set of frameworks and protocols and rules that we apply to a settlement to ensure that that settlement achieves one, a vibrant economy, and two, a great quality of life, and three, a standard of living, right? I think planning as a practice is agnostic in the sense of it applies similar rules to every city or town. But of course, it works within the context of that city or town. So when you talk about Pune or say Indian cities have a particular unique structure, very much like European cities in some senses, because they are old cities. So there is an old part of that town, of that city. In many cases, it's walled. In many cases, it will have certain cultural aspects, it will have some religious structure, it will have a market, and it will have some kind of administrative structure. And then around that, you'll have the housing and the shops and stuff like that. Plus, Indian architecture is also very unique in the sense that we used to have the Vada system, especially in Pune. So, in your Vadas, you would have the shop in the front, and then you would have the house behind, or the shop below and the house on top. So in this case, so that brings a uniqueness of land use, which is true for Europe as well. It happens in Europe as well. So I think the Indian context, when you talk about Indian context, I think it's more about maintaining cultural aspects, maintaining your identity. But where it comes to say efficiencies, creating efficiencies, which planning aims to do, creating more jobs, improving that quality of life. So I'll give you an example. So if we try to maintain the VADA system, which is very beautiful by the way, but if we try to maintain it, then we would not have these setbacks, which are now a norm in Indian cities. So if you're building a structure, you need certain setbacks because that is enabling fire, like access for fire safety. Then you have it's airy. There is less spread of disease because your structures are not close together, so people are not living close together. So there is less contagion. So there are there's a certain logic behind why certain rules are now made, which were not followed before. So I feel the only thing I can actually draw out is that there has to be, say, a respect for the culture and a respect for the demography. So that would be the way people have to live. So there might be lower income people. And I feel that when we plan, we are in danger of actually not thinking about vulnerable populations, etc. So I feel in India, there are a lot of vulnerable populations. There's slums, there are homeless, there are people living in chals. So all of this has to be taken into consideration. So I think that is one very unique part of Indian planning.
So when you say the culture of any society, so every city in India have its own flavor. हर सिटी का अपना एक फ्लेवर होता है. बट आज का जो प्लानिंग है वो फ्लेवर को मैच कर रहा है क्या? बिकॉज एनीवेयर यू गो हर सिटी एक जैसा दिखने लग गया है.
नहीं वही
टॉल बिल्डिंग, स्काई स्क्रैपर्स, ग्लास फसाड.
करेक्ट. सो वही होता है बिकॉज इट्स एन एफिशिएंट वे ऑफ. सो वो प्लानिंग नहीं. ओके, फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल आई विल टेल यू दैट द थिंग इज दैट व्हेन वी प्लान वी डू फोर मेजर थिंग्स. Okay. The first thing is we take care of land use. So we decide on how the land should be used. So you could call it land use regulation for that town or village. The second thing is, so then the land uses are like residential, commercial, industrial, and there are certain rules that you follow. You don't keep industrial near residential. You look at wind directions and stuff like that and decide how you want to place your various uses. You want mixed, so there is a new thing for. So mixed was always old, like I talked about the VADA system. So you had your shops outside and then you had a house.
Now आज के context में जो नीचे retail बना के 2-4 floor office बना के ऊपर residential बनाते हैं.
So that is like
we call it mixed use,
right? And so that mixed use actually is a better, more efficient way of using land instead of pure residential, pure commercial. Because what people started noticing in central business districts, especially in the United States, that everybody would come in the morning to work in the central big business district, in the CBD. And in the evening, everybody would leave. And so that district would become like a dead zone. And then it became dangerous. So there was no security. Where anybody was walking alone, they could get mugged, So these were certain dangers. So in response to that, they kind of went back to a mixed use kind of a thing. And maybe later on I'll talk about how mixed use is more useful for providing services and facilities very close by to people. But that's one thing, land use. The second thing is we also regulate density. So how many people can stay in 1 acre, right?
How many people
can stay in 1 acre?
Can stay or should stay?
So should stay. There is an ideal, and that ideal has not actually been studied. There is no real one number, magic number that says
Worldwide? Or
worldwide. There is no magic number. People say that they want higher density. Higher density in the Indian context, and so this is a unique Indian contextual thing. Europeans and Americans, when they go for high density, they are going for maybe 600 people per hectare, maybe even up to 1,000 people per hectare. But in the Indian context, we already have 1,000, 2,000 people per hectare. So when you say densify more, no, we don't want to densify more, right? We want to keep it below whatever, even 2,000 is a lot. Like in a slum, you'll have 3,000 people per hectare, right? So you don't want that. That's hyper dense.
So just for context, per hectare is 2.5 acre, 1 lakh square feet approximately.
Yeah. So in 1 lakh square feet, you're putting 1,000 or 2,000 people in that. So that's how many, I think 10, 20 square feet per person, right? So that's not, I don't think that would be, I think that would be like tight as a fit. In India, when you define an urban place, you define it by 3 measures. It has to have a minimum population of 5,000. This is the census definition, right? So it has to have a minimum population of 5,000 people. It has to have a density of 400 people per hectare, and it's 2/3 of its male working population has to be in the secondary or tertiary sector. Why they've got that male working population?
I was about.
Yeah, but it's a bit not gender sensitive according to me. But so when we say it, we say main working population. So 2/3 cannot be in your primary sector, which is agriculture, fisheries, this kind of thing. It should be in either manufacturing or services, right? And so that's the definition. So when you follow that definition, I pack up 5,000 people, I ensure 400 people per hectare, and I ensure that 2/3 of the population is not working in the fields or wherever, and I've got a city. But that does not entail a city. So there are various services that have to be provided. So the idea of urban is also very...
Idea of?
Urban is very, it's not yet understood properly, according to me, as a teacher also. I also teach planning. So what I feel is that defining exactly what is needed is extremely important. But going on with what I was saying, so land use planning, density planning. So density also entails, once you decide your density, you understand how many cars, how many bikes there will be, what kind of parking you require, how much sewage is going to be produced, how much water supply needs to be provided, how much energy needs to be provided. So all your services and everything are based on how many people live there. And then you do a per person kind of a measurement, and then you provide those services. It's not necessarily that you provide exactly that per person. That's the minimum. Then you can provide more than that. So that gives you what your minimum requirement is. So density also defines that. So even your sewage pipe gauge is based on how many people are living there, because it's based on how much needs to be carried out. So there are various, even your solid waste management is based on that. So if you start giving denser, higher, taller, nice looking, I mean, that's what people think, that taller is better. But sadly, you are putting a bigger boj, more weight on the services that need to be provided. And the problem is that there is no... So though you might be getting a permission to do a big building, it's not necessary that the city is providing all the services for that big building. I think Kharadi is a great case in point, where the water is not supplied. People are taking tankers, but I'm sure they are paying property tax where they have a water tax component. So they have the right to actually receive direct water supply, not through tankers.
Most of the locations in Pune.
So this is becoming a big problem. So yeah, so density control. And so density control, the mechanism to do it is FSI. In America, they call it FAR, floor area ratio. Here we call it floor space index. So density control is extremely important. I mean, that is your, it's like the DNA.